Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell.
Yo, be a father. If not, why bother, son? A boy can make them, but a man can raise one. Be a father to your child. Be a father to your child.
Yo, what's up? This is Manny Digital, and we're here. Welcome back to the Fatherhood Podcast.
Where'd you get that smooth voice from?
Come on, baby. I used to do radio, kid. You didn't know this?
Nah, you didn't do radio. What'd you do radio?
Here in New York, FM station.
CYZ these balls?
Tito.
It was La Calle.
W balls.
So, how was y'all's week so far?
Not too bad.
Well, I don't know. Somebody almost wanted to do an emergency podcast.
I did.
Oh, that's right, Kay.
I did.
So
we had
KG
we should
Bizzle. He set the precedent for emergency podcast therapy.
Yeah, I was very close to calling in for sure.
What happened?
You know, it was like a series of events. I think it's just due to like my son like being in kindergarten and being a new thing. But it was, and he's always usually pretty happy, in a good mood, and all that kind of stuff. And then all last week, it just seemed like there was multiple meltdowns that I wasn't used to, and it was almost like, wait a second, this looks like teenager type, behavior and shit. But it was bugging me out. And then we had that night, I forget what night it was. We were having picked him up from school, had a great day, picked up some pizza. We were ready to have dinner. And then something like really just like something small happened. I forget what it was, but then like he ended up pushing a plate across the table on some, like he was pissed. I'd never seen him do that before. And then, then the shit just started hitting the fan with, us talking to him. And then like he got just like super mad. And then we made the mistake of asking like, all right, what are you really thinking right now? Because yeah, so that was eye-opening. I'm not going to get into exactly what he said, but it was surprising that he could be that young, but like be thinking thoughts like that.
Well, I mean, you got to get us some kind of insight.
Come on, man.
Right,
you're keeping us in the dark.
So
yeah,
it's not horrible, but it just goes to show, like, even when they're young, when they get mad, like they've got those feelings, and sometimes they don't understand, like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. We were getting on him about it, and like, he was having a meltdown or a breakdown, and then we tried to like pull it back around and try to figure out what the root of it, what was going on. But he was still mad. He was basically, we're trying to talk him out of it, and he's still just like, can I leave the table now? I just don't want to talk to anyone. I'm mad, and we're like, nah, you got to stay. You got to stay here. We're still eating. We're not done yet. Right. And then my wife said, we love you. Well, that just kind of like reinforced, try to say something positive to him.
Right.
And then we started talking to him and just trying to get into his head, because he was not, like, you could just see the anger in his face. And, we said, all right, no consequence. Just tell us what you were thinking. Like, and he's like, well, very hesitant. You sure I'm not going to get a consequence? It's a bad word. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And he goes, well, when you said you love me, and I was thinking you're stupid, among other things. So, and then especially to my wife, like that really hurt her feelings. And I mean, I already knew he was mad at me. It was more so directed at me, but she kind of caught because I was being more the disciplinarian at that moment. So I knew most of it was directed at me, but she ended up catching it just because she was agreeing with me,
collateral damage.
Yeah, basically. So then she ended up getting visibly upset, because it's like a shock to hear this little guy who's always so loving, and all of a sudden he's got these not so loving feelings. And then once he saw that she was visibly upset, then he lost his shit. Right? He's fucking crying. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Like, yeah, just like once he realized that, I guess he realized the power of words and how you could actually make people feel. And when he saw that he visibly made my wife feel bad, and then all of a sudden that made him feel really bad. And, you know, it was like life shattering, like, oh shit, maybe she's not going to like me anymore, you know, that kind of thing. And then he just lost it for I don't know, it must have gone on for an hour of just trying, you know. So
Wow.
Shit.
yeah, so
And that was like one afternoon. You're saying
that was
yeah.
Well, we had a couple incidents like throughout the week, which was not typically normal. We hardly ever have any issues with him, but then there were just weird things would like set him off. Like we'd be doing a bunch of fun stuff, and then something wouldn't go his way at the end of the day, and something he wanted to do, and then he'd lose it. And I'm looking at him like, you know, you got to learn to appreciate everything great that just happened, and roll with the punches, and you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting. It was draining.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you were mad stressed.
Yeah, definitely felt stressed out.
How does a stressed KGB look?
Pretty much like a non-stressed.
I've seen you stressed. I've seen him stressed.
Yeah.
Well, you guys actually work together in the same building.
But no, it was more so. It was more. It wasn't actually stressed as perplexed and kind of like, damn. You know, are we taking a turn here? We're gonna start seeing more of this kind of shit. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Because I guess just with kids, man, they change so quickly and drastically with the more that they're learning or the more that they're interacting in different situations and whatnot. So, yeah, it was different.
You said you were the disciplinarian in that situation. I'm curious to know, what does discipline look like? How has it been, like the process of disciplining your son, and like what approaches do you take?
I mean, we try to talk things through. I mean, you know, there's consequences and things like that. So, I mean, you know, we can give some warnings, but then if it gets past the warning stage, then we will, you know, whether it's take away your bike, take away your whatever privileges to do something, just so he knows that there's a consequence to an action. But it's almost like we generally try to have one of us be, you know, in a certain situation, be the one who's being vocal about it, so it doesn't.
The good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, a little bit, but not necessarily on his. You know, the good cop's not necessarily on his side. You know, it just means that both
just
of us,
not double teaming.
Yeah, both of us don't have to be banging his head like with back and forth, because that could be a little too much. You know.
What age did you start to implement any kind of discipline that you saw that it was he even understood what it was?
I don't remember, to be honest with you, but because I mean we haven't had too many issues with him, but I mean I think maybe when he's 2 to 3, like when they start, at least when he started having, like, being able to carry conversations, and you know, and you can kind of reason with them more in terms of don't do this or this is going to happen, and you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That tends to work, like the good cop, bad cop, but well, I call it neutral cop, bad cop, because when they see they do get pissed off, but when they see that you're both like on the kid about a particular thing, it tends to make them feel like, all right, damn, I fucked up. But I'm victim of this all the time, and my strategy has changed dramatically, because when my wife would get tight, and she's the one that has the most patience, I got a short fuse. So I'm the kind that's like, all right, look, I'm gonna tell you once, I'm gonna tell you twice, but if I had to tell you a third time, you know, there's gonna be some serious shit going down. And I had to stop like ganging up on the kids, because you see, I mean, it gets scary, because you got everybody screaming at you at the same time. Like, you're like, they crawl up and they're like, all right, I don't know what to do, and they start panicking. So I just shut up and let my wife do what she needs to do, and then when things calm down, I'm like, yo, you got your mom pissed off, and they know when they get mom pissed off, like they really cross the line.
But you know what? The discipline thing is also, as much as it's a learning experience for them, it's it's for us as well if we care to look at it that way, because like looking back at this particular scenario, now that I'm thinking about it, it's it was something as simple as he was messing with a plate and we told him not to do it, and then snatched it out of his hand and then replaced it with a plastic plate. And I was like, oh, you can use the baby plate now. And that pissed him off, like, 'cause I'm shaming him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in turn, then he does something. So there's always, this. So it's like, okay, how can I be a better parent? I mean, still you have to lay down the law in terms of what's acceptable. And it's like, if you get mad about something, he's got words. He can learn to use his words and explain, what he's doing, as opposed to shoving a plate, that kind of thing. But as a parent, it's like, what can I be more mindful of so that I don't necessarily create situations? Not that I'm trying to walk on eggshells, but I can learn to be smarter and approach things differently so that it doesn't spark off a situation or make someone feel a certain way. Because at the end of the day, just like, and you do something to piss someone off, the same way you piss a
provoke
kid.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but do you guys ever think that maybe more our generation, that we're overthinking the parenting and how the kids feel? Because I just feel like like our generation, it means, when I say our generation, I mean us parenting, but when our generation as being children with our parents and then their parents and going back further back, they were just like, el que manda aquí soy yo, which meaning I'm the one that runs shit here.
Yeah. And
they didn't sit here and go, I wonder, psychologically, how does this all pan out? They just gave you the chancleta, the belt, they whooped your ass, and it almost seems like people were, as a whole, children were more well behaved. At least it seems that way in retrospect. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think the difference is we're not. It's not like we're having these conversations with the kids themselves. Like, well, if I hadn't pulled that plate from your hand, that kind of thing.
No, I know, but I mean, do you think your parents had these conversations? I mean, or grandparents? I don't think they did.
I don't know. I think a lot older school folks didn't necessarily have these conversations.
No, I don't know.
But I think just as like wanting to learn from myself, like being able to be introspective and kind of think about now whether or not I act on them or change my way of parenting or change my discipline tactics. I still don't. We probably do more. We probably talk about it more, and like you're saying, but I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing. I think it's just No,
I definitely don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just wondering, where's the balance in the heavy hand of the old school and the conscious understanding of psychology and how things
I think essentially if you can have a heavy hand mentally with a kid, so that they you lay down the law, and for the most part your voice is the law, and then they listen to you, then you've made an impact, and you might need to tweak things internally as to how you get to that point, but still having strict guidelines and having some strict things to follow, and then figuring out how to get your kids to adhere to that stuff.
And figuring out. Sorry to I'll
go.
A second, man. But it's also figuring out the individual, like case by case. I'm sure, because
exactly.
I'm sure the heavy hand. One adult might say, "Thank God my parents were so heavy-handed with me, because I would have gone this route." And then the other kid that got heavy-handed turned into a psychopath.
Oh yeah.
And decided to kill squirrels, skin them, and then later on in life become a mass murderer.
Look at some of the kids that are like,
that sounds like one of your hobbies.
Just looking at like some of his classmates, I can look at and some that are just acting crazy. I'm like, they need a different type of discipline than,
right.
than, you know what I mean? So I think, everyone's different.
But it kind of goes back to the underlying theme here, I think, and it's communication, right? So
Right.
I think that's a major part of this, and it's one that I could say from my personal experience as a child wasn't one that was utilized very, very well by my parents and other parents of friends of mine. And not to say that they didn't communicate, but when they got frustrated, they turned to action or loud voices and reprimand versus like, let's try to figure this out. And so I'm still guilty of that. Like I'll be quick to like scream after I hit a certain point. And I find now as an adult, and I'm sure as a kid I made a whole gang of noise in and around my neighborhood, but now as an adult, when loud noise is excessive, I go nuts. And I'm like, but I catch myself all the time now because I'm like, yo, chill. They're kids, they're running around. You're in a, like, luckily now I live in a house, a private house. When I was growing up, I lived in an apartment building. So if I'm making noise, the neighbor downstairs is hearing it, and potentially the neighbor upstairs. So my mother would always say, lo vecino, like, the neighbors. And that was, she didn't want to disrespect their sanity and sanctity in their places. So we were like tiptoeing everywhere. So for me now, I still have that ingrained in me, and it annoys me, but I got to let these kids roam free because, I mean, there's no real harm in it. But,
Right.
But side note, I did say, yo, I'm recording a podcast. You better shut the fuck up.
So, well, why don't we do this? We actually got a guest today as well.
Our
So,
first guest on
yep.
fatherhood.
Since we're talking about discipline, and he's a fairly new father as well, why don't we bring him in on this conversation?
Sounds
Let's get
good.
it.
All right.
Let's get it.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So, yeah, we got our first guest on Fatherhoods. We got Statik Selektah, DJ producer.
Hey,
What's up, Statik?
make some fatherhood noise. Oh yeah, we should cue up the baby sound.
Right. The rattler. Rattlers, whatever you call
I'll get you the real thing if you want.
them.
How old, Daddy, how old is your daughter?
She's 3 years old now.
She's 3. Okay.
So we were
You-
talking. Oh, go ahead, Manny.
No, I was gonna say no. Now we're talking about baby noises. I mean, it's not quite baby noise. You getting full on like conversational screams and
Attitude, full
yeah.
back talk.
So we were talking about discipline a little bit because I had a couple meltdowns with my son last week that were surprising, that were out of his nature, and then we got on the topic of like how we all kind of approach discipline or how we were disciplined as kids. I mean, what's your thought on discipline, and have you had to deal with that much with your daughter?
Now, we're dealing with it every day right now because she's testing us to see what the boundaries are. So just a little while ago, I had to like put her in timeout and try to get down to her level and look her in the eye and be like, "This is what you did wrong." Sit in the corner, and she doesn't want to. And then if she tries leaving timeout during that minute, we make her go back in, and then she has she throws temper tantrums sometimes, but it's hard because sometimes they do like really crazy things that you start thinking what the limits are of punishing. Because when I was a kid, like my mother used to like go in on me physically, like not on some like she was a little woman, so it wasn't a big deal because like I was a growing teenager when she used to discipline me. But like, that was like my only memories of like my father ever like being physical at all. I was probably like 3-4 years old, and he got me going up the stairs one time, and he never touched me again the rest of his life. And that was like one time was enough to like scare any idea of talking back to him out of me for like my whole life.
You said he stopped, and do you think that he thought he took it too far at that point and was like, all right, I'm good?
I mean, not even. I think he just I never like dealt with him getting that upset in my life at that point. I just like the memories I had as a little kid. Like he like got me going up the stairs. He didn't like hit me in the face or anything, but he might have got my leg or like hit me on the butt or something. But I remember being so terrified that I like never talked back to him ever again.
That's what we were kind of talking about. We were saying like the old school heavy hand approach, and even our parents who still use the belt or the chancleta or whatever, versus now we're like kind of like we kind of overthink it. Like we're not necessarily, I mean, at least everybody so far on this podcast, we're all like not really thinking about first thing we're gonna do is hit our kids. So that's kind of like what we're saying. Like, what's the balance of like? Because it seemed like the old school approach did kind of work. You know,
putting fear in them doing it is one thing, but it's like, you know, like the furthest we've gone in this house is really like, you know, when she's done like the, you know, something extremely bad, like, you know, like purposely poured like strawberry syrup on the white couch or something like that. Like, definitely like held her hand down and hit her hand like pretty hard just to like scare her, like, you know what I mean? And it works sometimes, but it's like I don't like that mentality, because then when she gets mad, she like thinks she can hit other like
right.
They're like, you know, it's different having a girl, because with a boy it's like, you know, you kind of raise them to be tough, but with a girl it's like you want. I'm still figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I'm right behind you. I have a 4-month-old daughter, so
4-month-old. So I got.
you got a little ways to go before you deal with it like on that level, but like I've said a million times, if I had a boy and he did what like she done a couple times, like he would definitely catch it.
I mean,
I want to raise a boy to be like tough and be like ready for it. Like you don't want to do that with a little princess. You know what I mean?
That's kind of the problem though, because I have 2 girls and a boy. My boy's in the middle. So what you just said actually rings true, because my youngest, she's 2. When she starts to wild out, you know, it's a conversation for the most part. Yeah. When my son wilds out, and so he's 5, so he already understands certain things that he shouldn't do. But and boys tend to be this way, is what I keep hearing from parents. He wants to stretch the boundaries beyond what the girls would dare to do. And so when he does it, he gets the psycho face, right? And so the conversation is like grit, you know, chomp, you know, clenched mouth and practically cursing at him is kind of how it goes down. But it's tough, because you're right. You want him to be kind of tough and grow up, you know, to be a man's man, you know, so to speak. But you know, sometimes you want to beat the crap out of him.
But you know, I noticed in the long run, people that I know that are siblings that are, you know, boys and girls. Even my cousin, who you know, she would always say, as we got older, that I was given more leeway as a boy in the family versus her. You know, I wonder if that's, you know, kind of like the tit for tat. Like, you know, you want to be more, you want to raise your boys tough, but then later on, then the girl, you tighten, you know, you tighten her in the noose so she doesn't do as much, and then you let the boy run free. I wonder if that happens, you know?
Yeah, it's hard. I grew up an only child. Like, I have a half brother and a half sister, but they're both like over 20 years older than me, so I never really grew up with them. And then the only time I ever dealt with any of that was like I have a couple cousins that used to like literally like boy and girl, they used to physically fight nonstop. So like that's my only real memories of like kids growing up dealing with that. Like I have nieces and nephews, but I wasn't really around them at that age. Like they lived out of state. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like living a new life for the first time ever, because I've never dealt with a 3-year-old girl in my life, you know?
How's that changed your whole lifestyle? So I mean, prior to fatherhood, I mean, you lived a pretty wild lifestyle, and I would assume that you still do. But I mean, how's that changed for you?
With my career, it's like I don't have to really do anything during the day besides like when I do Shade 45, I have to go in the city a little early, and I usually have a meeting in the city. But besides like meetings, it's, you know, at this point my management handles a lot of that, so I'm like blessed to be able to be with my kid from like the moment she wakes up until I go to the studio at night. And I don't go to the studio until probably like 9:30 and she's asleep. So it's like I'm with her like a lot of the time. So it's like that's definitely a luxury for me, because I get to see everything. And a lot of my friends in the same situation work in the city and they got to go to jobs and like be in the office all day. They get home, they see the kid for like an hour. So it's definitely like it's a privilege to be able to be with her all day and see, you know, the growth every day. And, like you asked what's changed. It's like I used to tour like 200 days a year. Now it's like I only do my own stuff. Like I don't DJ I used to DJ for Joey Badass. I DJed for Q-Tip, all kinds of people. But now it's like I don't leave town unless it's my gig and it makes sense for me. You know what I mean? Like my time is way more important at home now. And plus, honestly, like I like being in the studio more than anything now. So I like to be able to just go to the studio every day when she goes to sleep. And being on tour for months at a time is not the move when, you know, you're getting older. I'm 36 now. I started doing that when I was 22. So it's like it got old. So that's like the biggest thing in my life that's changed is the travel.
So you don't when you do travel, how long are you away, and how is that disconnect with your daughter when it does come time for you to hit the road somewhere?
I mean, FaceTime's been amazing because we didn't a lot of my friends that have kids didn't have that when their kids were that age. So it's like being able to talk to them a couple times a day is amazing. The longest I've been away since she's been born is probably like 10 days. But that's like maybe once or twice. Like most of the time I go for a weekend. I go for like I was actually in Cuba last weekend, and that was interesting because there's no real internet there. So it was like, that was the first time I haven't been able to FaceTime like that. But like most of the time I go away, do a gig, maybe stay an extra day or two. Like I'll do a little Europe run for like 4 or 5 days and come back. Like nothing extensive.
You still with you and the baby's mother together?
Yeah, we've been through a lot, but we're definitely in the same house now and trying to, get things back to the way they were.
So she's supportive, and when you do travel and all that, is that everything kosher there?
She doesn't have to work. She just takes care of the kids. So like that's kind of like the way it's been set up since way before the baby was born.
What does your daughter think about the music side of things? You have her come into the studio and that kind of stuff, or
she's in the studio with me. She's on my last album. She's all about music, and she loves scratching and making beats and stuff. Even though I never wanted her to be a DJ or do any of that, but like she like sees me do it and sees other people, and her aunt and her uncle. Her uncle's Tony Touch, so she sees him, and his girl Sony, and it's just like she's just surrounded by it that she loves it so much. So if she ended up wanting to DJ, it's all good. But I never wanted her to do that. So like a lot of people are like, "Oh, she's gonna be a DJ." I'm like, "Nah, no, she's not." But definitely gonna be into music. Like she loves singing. Her mother sings, so hopefully she starts taking singing more serious. I want her to take like instruments more serious.
So we were talking. Go ahead, Manny.
No, I was gonna say, what do you think about the state of fatherhood just in the hip hop game, right? Because I think one of the big reasons why we decided to get together and do this was, there's a stigma against hip hop culture as it relates to fathers, and the narrative, if you believe it, is that they're always absentee, never really about their kids, and I mean we've seen firsthand that that's not always the case. So how do you see it with the artists that you work with and just the industry at large from your perspective?
I gotta like my immediate circle, everybody's great dads, and I see like the divide because like a lot of them, their dads weren't around, and like I've seen both sides of it. I try not even to associate people with any that ain't involved in their kids' lives, but I also do know it's not always that easy. I don't want to say no names, but I know some like really high profile like celebrities that I've had like deep conversations with that don't really get to see their kids, and it's super frustrating because when they say their side of it, it's like, damn, like I know it's not always that easy. I know a lot of people that can't see their kids in general that it really hurts because they're good people, and it's easy to be like, oh, anyone that doesn't see their kid's a piece of shit or whatever. Like,
right.
You got to really know the both sides of the story. So it's like, and like I said, in my immediate camp, like I got dudes like Terminology who has good dad gang and has he's there for them. My friend, one of my good friends, Bamford, he's my kid's godfather. Like everybody in my immediate camp is like amazing dads, but I have dealt with like dealing, I wish I could say names, but I can't because I would never break that confidentiality. But it's definitely people that like you've probably heard things about that. It's just so, both dudes and both fathers and mothers can be real evil when it comes to using the kid as a tool.
Yeah.
And I think the stigma goes back to like just people in general when a lot of artists would rap about groupies or cock and bitches or whatever. It just seemed like people were busting nuts, not caring the consequences.
Right.
And then and they would joke about like, oh, I got possibles and kids and blah blah blah. And I think that's where the negative stigma came from. When really most of these guys are even saying that, really and truly weren't living that type of lifestyle. They were taking care of their kids.
Like we come from a different generation.
Yeah.
Being more conservative with like having kids even in like the '90s, dudes were having 10 rappers would have like 10 kids. You still hear about it once in a while, but not the way it is now. And now if you look at it, like you can still have that like pimp, gangster like image and still be a good dad. Like look at some like 2 Chainz raps about the
I was thinking 2 Chainz, yeah.
and he's like the ultimate dad. He got like 3-4 kids. He just got married recently, and he's just like he's a stand-up dude. Like you can tell he's a family man. He does the right thing. Look at Fat Joe. Look at Khaled. Like everybody you look at now that has their kids on social media, which is always some people don't like doing it, some people do, and I've dealt with like both sides of my mind telling me if I should or shouldn't put her as much on social media, being in the spotlight. But if you look at it now, I feel like we have so many, nothing but great dads to look up to when at least on the side of what's being shown to us,
Actually, wait, sorry, Kate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it going to relate it to this?
Yeah, but go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that's a good segue because it's something that I've kind of thought about a lot is the whole social media aspect. And one of the people that really blew it out the water was Khaled, and where he's taking it to where his kid basically is set for life right now. And, you just got to wonder, what's the downside to that? There obviously has to be a downside to it.
Definitely a risk of like, what's that going to do to the kids,
Narcissism.
He's like, yeah, but beyond that, like that, we don't know what kind of damage that's going to do to a kid being like. We've never seen a baby go from famous.
No, that's new. That's
like Michael Jackson was famous from like 6 years old.
And look what
right.
Camera. And social media is a whole different kind of evil now because we never really seen anyone get raised on social media.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully, Khaled and the whole family they're prepared and they have a plan. Yeah, no, his girl's amazing. So but we, that's just something like not even like on that level, like just.
I'm gonna grab my charger real quick. My computer's gonna die at 1%. I'm gonna grab my charger.
Yeah, you're good.
And we'll continue here. But even on some normal, who's the feedback?
I think it's static speaker.
So let's just wait.
Static got the static.
Hey.
What's up?
How are you?
And tell the people your name.
What's your name?
Harley.
And who's your favorite rapper?
Maggie.
And what is Biggie Smalls? He's the.
Let's bring him back in.
He's like, I don't want the social media game.
She said he's the illest. Click.
Be a little.
Don't press anything.
This will be a little late night editing session.
That was dope.
We'll keep that.
Stop pressing buttons.
Oh man.
Let's see what timeout looks like.
Yeah, we kind of have to keep this in.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep that.
No, press nothing. Stop.
All right, Static. We're seeing discipline in action right now.
Don't press any buttons. You keep cutting them off.
So Harley, Biggie Smalls is the illest?
Yeah.
Where do you live?
And hey, talk to me.
No, where do you live?
Mickey Parsons Ellis
No, where do you live?
in Brooklyn.
Nice. And it's
You like Brooklyn?
Yeah. You talk to me.
Me? Who? The guy with the beard?
Who? The guy that looks like Santa Claus?
Yeah.
So you got the studio named after you, Harley's House of Hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do in the studio?
Dinner.
What?
Dinner.
What?
Dinner.
Don't press anything.
Okay.
Okay, I will.
Okay, fine.
Bye, Harley.
See ya.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Static.
Yo, how do you? Damn, Kay, go,
What?
man. You've been trying to ask something.
Nah,
Kay.
it's all good. It's all good. I just wanted to find out. I mean, this is all in the vein of the conversation, but content-wise, what do you let her listen to, and what will you let her listen to in the future, just in terms of language and content and all
She
that
doesn't
stuff?
really like. She knows. She knows Biggie Smalls the illest. She knows a couple Biggie songs, but I play the clean versions. But she knows some of my music. Besides that, we listen to like Michael Jackson and like Stevie Wonder. And the other day, like the way she is attracted to, like, we were watching the Quincy Jones documentary. She was playing, she wasn't paying no attention, and Ray Charles started singing, and she just stopped everything and looked at the TV and was just quiet for like 5 minutes and watched the whole thing while he was singing, and I could just tell like it grabbed her a certain way.
So,
so you play clean versions of hip hop. I assume what your music is it also the clean version, or do you let the regular right?
I don't play her the bad songs. Like she knows a couple of the records that are more positive.
Got it.
I actually want to do a mixtape that's like something that parents can play for toddlers. That's like famous hip hop songs.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, in fact, I forgot that tape. I'm gonna find that tape. Keep talking, guys.
Yeah, we actually in the previous episode we were talking about exactly that, but from a playlist perspective, like putting some stuff together.
Yeah, because my son always wants to hear songs, and we'll be putting stuff on in the car. We're listening, and then it's like don't always get the clean versions, and once the fucks and shit start flying, we're like, damn.
she knew, Prodigy. Prodigy lived next door to us, and she knew Combat Jack. She like been around so many people that I have to explain to her later like how important they were to what I do. But I definitely gonna show her the importance of some of the people like definitely Prodigy. He's someone that meant a lot to me that even before I knew him meant a lot. I can't wait to explain like who these people were that were part of her life like that. Even Sean Price, like his second to last post was a picture of her when like she was like 2 weeks old when he died. It's just crazy, man.
Didn't he give you some advice? I remember you telling me that he gave you some advice about once she was born.
He was just like, calling your daughter from a police station is not cool. He's like, you got to put your pride aside. Because, Sean comes from a very short-tempered mentality, which I come from fighting in Boston and then moving to New York. And just like literally we used to fight a lot. Like even a couple of years ago, like too much. I avoided jail too many times. I ended up in jail too many times. But he gave me like that speech, and I was like, all right, Sean, I get it. Like definitely. And I agree with him. But then he died like that. I don't even know, probably 3 days after he gave me that speech. And it was just like, damn. So I like tried to do that for him and obviously for her, but just he took that conversation so serious. And a guy like Sean Price, all he does is rap about slapping dudes and beating people up. That's like, he was like, no, like dead ass. Like, your pride isn't worth, taking an L. You're not taking the L no more. Your kid is.
Yeah.
And he had, Sean has two, he has an older boy, and I think his son's like 18, 19 years old. But he said when he had little Sean, his daughter, that's when everything changed for him. Because like going back to what we were talking about, just having a daughter is a lot different.
Have you? And you mentioned when you have to explain, these people to your daughter. Has she in any respect experienced or have you had to have that discussion around like death, right? Like a member of the family or somebody close. Like how has that gone if you've experienced it?
Multiple times. I mean, whenever she sees pictures, I mean, her grandmother, my grandmother, her great grandmother passed not too long. Well, she passed about 2 years ago now, but Harley was just starting to talk and figure it out. And, like I said, Prodigy, like she was there when I was going to all these funerals. And then this past week when Mac Miller, she's like, your friend died? He went to heaven? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, where'd you hear that? And she's like, she calls her grandmother Manya. She's like, Manya taught me that. And I was like, really? I didn't even know she knew about all that. She's like, I personally don't. I'm not religious or anything, but, her grandmother taught her that. So now every time she sees somebody, like she'll come to the studio and have a Sean Price bobblehead. And she'll be like, that's your friend? He died? Why he died? Sick. Oh, he's like, you go to heaven though? I'm like, yeah. Like, it's crazy how they start
rationalizing, but it's not. She doesn't go through it from a. It's an inquisitive thing. It's not like
not
an
a
emotional
sad.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little while ago too. Just how that whole thing pans itself out, and I guess age is obviously a big piece of that because the older they are, the more attachment there is, and there's more sensitivity there.
Do you guys remember? My girl actually brought this up. It's funny. This morning she asked me if I remembered the age that I understood what death was. Do you guys? I don't remember. Do you guys remember that?
No, I don't think so.
I
think I started getting
she remembers. She said it was devastating when she realized, that's it. You died.
It was sometime in elementary school for me and I think it was just I started getting nervous about my mom dying at some point because I was a only child and single mom, and so she worked a lot at nights too. So I'd always be worried about like something happened to her when she's driving home late at night, that kind of stuff. And that's where like the whole death thing clicked in for me. But sometime around elementary school.
Yeah, I guess it's probably the same for me.
You were gonna say something, Static?
I was just saying, I think the first time I ever dealt with death was like when my turtle died, and I was like 8. I didn't have anyone close to me die until like 11 years old, and then after that, I feel like it's been like every year so many people since then.
Shit. It seems like now, for some reason, like people are just dying left and right. It's crazy. It's crazy, man.
All right, do you have certain things that, and we've talked about this amongst ourselves in other episodes, but are there certain things from your childhood or ways of parenting that you've looked at from you growing up and saying, I'm not doing that, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z a different way because it left a negative impact on you?
I mean, I was a pretty serious kid. Like I decided I was gonna be a DJ when I was 13, and I like never. Before that, I was still into music and like very, addicted to it. But like when I was like, from the day I decided I was gonna do this, like I literally never like. It was never like a thing. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna do this. Like I took it so serious that like kids in my high school were like, "Yo, come party," and I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay in and scratch or make a mixtape or act like I was on the radio." Or I actually started doing radio when I was 14, so it was like I just always took it so serious that I think I'm gonna put that drive in her. I don't want to like bang it into her head like on some. You have to decide what you want to be when you're 13, but I think she's naturally gonna just like go in a musical direction, and if she doesn't, it's all good. But I think taking your teenage years more serious than like others do is important, because that saved my life. Like I saw a lot of people, even that wanted to do the same thing as me, they didn't take it serious until later, and it's like it just
What advice though? Because we did talk about this, and we were saying like, being that we are in the industry, what we thought about our kids following in those footsteps. What kind of advice would you give your daughter, knowing that the hardships that in any kind of entertainment business or the arts, there's a lot of hardships? What kind of advice would you give her?
I think a lot of that's going to come as situations come. You know what I mean? Like she's going to see a lot of those very early, because she's just so surrounded by it. Like her whole family is just. It's just the way it's going to be. I haven't really thought that far ahead. As far as I think every instance is going to have a different, explanation. But I also think that, like I said, being able to be there and not have, like, she doesn't have babysitters, she doesn't have any of that. Like dealing with every situation, I just, knock on wood. Hopefully, I'm just around long enough to be, her guide with a lot of that stuff. I don't know.
Right.
We're still trying to figure out schooling and all that. I'm kind of on the fence if I wanted to go to a,
like public school,
or even like a private school. We're just figuring everything out.
Or school, period.
Homeschooling school to a certain extent, but I have someone that works for me, and like sometimes it bugs me out because I'll say something to him, and he'll be like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but just something so like obvious that we learned in school growing up, like he won't even know it, and I'll be like, wait, why don't you know that? And he'll be like, I was homeschooled, and I'll be like, oh shit, there's a flip side.
There's definitely a social aspect that you learn in
there's the pros
being
and cons
around other
that.
kids. Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure everything out, but we got a little time. But we got to make a decision about school in the next like 6 months.
Yeah, because at 4 you got to start with preschool and whatnot. That's the plan.
She has friends that are 3 already going to like preschool.
Mm.
And she got her to an interview at Montessori, and she got denied because like the kids were supposed to be like cleaning up the toys, and she was like throwing stuff around and just like drawing on like wood and stuff. I'm like, you can't.
Wait.
Yeah. I took my son to Montessori one time just to check it out, and and all the kids were just so quiet and moving around, and it was snack time, and the teacher
Explain
said,
for people who don't know what that is, though, the Montessori thing.
I want to say it's like, I don't really know how to describe it. It's like really early.
it's more focused on.
Because I'm just learning about it myself. Actually, my neighbor just told me that she teaches at one of those schools.
Well, out here it's like a lot of like in Brooklyn, like it's like $26,000 a year for 3.
All you need to know is it's expensive. That's
No, I already knew that. Just
one of my close friends grew up going to it, and he was like he was like lower class, so I don't know how he went to it because I guess it like depends which one you go to, different prices and all that.
Maybe they have programs.
They do scholarships too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just know that
it's basically more focused on the kid as opposed to like the teacher, like as like in a traditional classroom setting.
Individual, like
so like there's no front of the classroom. It's basically the kids come in and then they go in and figure out what's interesting to them and they start working on those projects. That
no grades, right?
What's funny is
I'm not sure about that.
It's like right in front of the Montessori school that we went to. So like the park's right in front, and I bring her over. All the kids that go there, most of their parents work. Like, most people work in general.
Normal.
Right. Rap music, but I'll go over to the park like those hours while they're there, and they go outside of the park. It's part of the school. They go out, for like 45 minutes a day or whatever. And I'll have Harley over there, and we'll be playing on the swings and the slide and all that. And the people that got the kids, it's like three adults for like 25, 30 kids. They're not even paying attention. It's little kids falling off the slides, falling off the jungle gym. I'm like, I don't, if I'm paying that kind of money, I want my kid to be
safe.
Sure. And they're like, it was weird, man. I don't know. I'm happy she's not going there. Like I said, everyone's different, but
what's your like? Because I mean, we look at this podcast as like our therapy session. Because I mean, we always talk about all the different things we go through as dads, and I'd love to ask you like, what has been like the most challenging moment you face while raising Harley so far?
Right now, it's a mix between definitely the disciplining thing and also potty training has been a pain in the ass. And I know other people that have had it easier, but we're having a hard time with it.
Let me introduce you.
Check out episode 2 of Fatherhood. All about potty training.
She'll hide in a closet, or she'll go like in a dark area and like. And just when when she has to do number 2, when she does, she'll be like, "I gotta pee." We'll be in a restaurant. We'll bring her to the bathroom. She goes pee. But as soon as it's time for number 2, like she's just very private about it. And when her friends already are wearing panties and not wearing pull-ups no more, she's like the only one that she hangs out with in her age group that still does it. So it's getting aggravating. But
does she tell you why she prefers not to, or is it kind of
she's completely like shut off about it? Even though she gets treats when we did the whole treat thing. If she goes in the toilet, we'll give her ice cream or like a cupcake or something, and it's not
having it.
You know what? She was doing great, and we went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and like we were like, whatever, we're in Puerto Rico, she can wear diapers the whole time, and we didn't like stress it, and that kind of like just set us back months.
Yeah, kids see those things can, because kids are, at least from my understanding, is they thrive on the consistency of like when you're trying to teach them stuff. So if there's breaks in the routine, then things can go a little haywire.
And I would imagine there's always going to be breaks in the routine, especially lifestyles like ours.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something, Statik, early in the conversation where as part of your disciplining, you got down to her level when you put her in timeout. It's an interesting dynamic, because I mean, it's something that it's not immediately noticeable for somebody to think of, but it is probably the best way to do it because you're getting at their level. Was that something just inherent, or like were you reading about stuff?
My mother has 7 brothers and sisters, so like she's been dealing with their grandchildren for years, and she helped raise my brother and sister even though they're not hers. And like they have kids, so she's been dealing with like toddlers for a long time. But she's the one that like really stayed on us about getting down to her level and explaining to her what she did wrong and all that.
Yeah, we do that. We do that too. We learned that. I don't remember where we learned that from, but that was an early on thing that we learned to help get the point across, is to crouch down and get at their level.
That's one of those things that I actually read about. where usually it was like gut stuff with respect to like how to treat and raise a kid. That's something I read, and I was like, oh shit, that makes all the sense in the world.
Did you end up doing it, Manny?
I do.
You read that shit, man.
Fuck it.
I was like, fuck that. Nah, I do it. I shake the shit out of my son though sometimes, and I gotta chill.
Oh man.
I don't hit him, but like, yo, sometimes I just gotta be like, yo, what the fuck? And then he gives me the wide eyes, and I'm like, all right, put him down, keep it moving.
That's that Dominican shit.
Hey, bro. Sometimes, you know what I mean?
I told you a long time ago.
I used to take her and like I'd be like, "You want to get baby slammed?" And she'd be like, "No." And I used to take her and, like throw her on the bed. Now she's like, "Yeah, slam me."
Yeah, more.
All day. She's like, "Slam me on the couch, slam me on the bed." She loves being thrown on the.
So I read about that actually. That like there's a whole thing about physical play for kids. Like that. There's a lot of kids these days that are coming up that don't get any of that kind of interaction, and so they I forget what the whole thing is, but they lack in something. But yeah, I mean the kids need a certain amount of that like physical wrestling and play with their parents and stuff, and nowadays there's just not a lot of that.
It goes to like with bullying and all that. Like I feel like when we growing up, bullying like made us like prepared for the world and tough. But and you want to be like, oh, but like my attitude was like, oh, bullies were always a good thing. The thing is now is with social media, it becomes a different.
It goes further than the school. It goes further than the playground. That's the problem.
It's just a whole different world now because, with anything, everything's just so sensitive and like, you got to just be careful on what you tell your kids to say. It's a whole new experience, man. Even like being on, I'm on Shade 45, which is like literally uncensored, but there's certain things that sometimes slip out that we got to be like, damn, we got to watch it. Cause like, coming up, a lot of crazy words were being thrown around that were fine on the radio. Howard Stern was throwing them around, like, like saying the FAG word and things like that. In hip hop, it was normal. And like rappers were saying it. Every rapper you ever heard said the word. And now it's a complete like taboo, like off the chart thing. And it's like, even with like media and like, I'm not that I was going to say words like that around my daughter. I'm just saying in general, like it's kind of the same thing talking about bullying, that now even what people are saying on TV is like people are losing their jobs off of things they used to do.
Yeah. The politically correctness is out of control. And,
exactly.
and imagine on Drink Champs, I'm scared all the time the next day. I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
What the hell are we talking about?
Like my show, we're drinking. It's like, nothing. Everything we're saying is said with no harm intended. But like, sometimes, like especially in the Trump era too, it's like, man, thank God we can talk shit about Trump. This is like, there's other radio shows that I've seen like people get letters like, yo, you cannot. I don't want to say who, but other DJs have got letters like you can't talk shit about Trump, like it's against policy.
We actually have to watch what we say about that around my son, because then he goes around and repeats it, and everyone's got different views, and when you're out in public, so it's like it's also like letting him understand, like, look, what we talk about at home doesn't necessarily mean you have to repeat everything, because everyone believes different things and lives a different way. So
Well, Harley's Puerto Rican, so she already hates Trump with a passion. don't limit our Trump hatred.
Her Boricua side is automatic.
Nah, like a lot of her family got they're devastated in Puerto Rico. So there's I don't care what she says about him. She hates him.
Yo, talking about the social media stuff again. You saw what Kanye said recently, right? About him thinking that they should abolish the view count and the follow count.
I'm not mad at that. The only thing is it's like, who's going to be like, how are you going to even filter the personalities on social media if there's no gauging why they're known for it? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, it's a good idea. I just think it's a little too late for that, because
it's way too late.
There's so much industry on a positive side, like independence, from the gatekeepers, that social media having those numbers, but there might be ways to circumvent that. Like you can maybe have a back end that you can show.
Think about how many like people wouldn't be famous if they didn't get likes on Instagram. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But what he's saying makes sense. Like for our kids, basically, is what I'm thinking. Like I don't want them to grow up in a place where they think the only validation they have is how many people follow them on a social. Imagine a kid in elementary now, because that's where it's at now already, in elementary school, wondering about social media, numbers. Like That's crazy to me.
Well, just think about what they're doing in China. Your social metric
It's
numbers.
not gonna be Facebook or Instagram in the next like 10 years, though. It's gonna be some next
Oh,
level.
it's gonna be some other shit. Yeah.
It's gonna be like integrated in people's bodies.
Well,
Like,
no,
it's
you know what they're doing in China, right? That basically your social metrics and your social numbers reflect like the higher and that you have
Like your
a
social
positive
status.
affects how you're going to be able to rent an apartment, buy a house, the money,
Get the
all that stuff.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Why, you guys watch Black Mirror on Netflix?
Nah, I need to see that.
So there's an episode that has that in it, but they're actually doing that in China, or at least rolling that out. So that's kind of scary to think about for kids in the future, because you do all kinds of dumb shit on social now, and so.
You asked what was one of the biggest challenges is like really accepting that you're bringing a new life into this world that's about to get crazier and crazier. Because technology alone is going to just implode everything when it comes down to it. Like, things are getting too advanced. And, you know, every year, what do they say? Things get like 100 times quicker every year. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, where can it even go? Like that was my hesitation in having kids up till now, and now my girl wants to have a second one.
Terminator.
Just so our kid isn't an only child like us. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just can't imagine.
I don't mind her being an only child. Like I
was an only child.
We had a very rough 2 pregnancies, and like the second one, thank God, you know, Harley was born. So it's like her mother's done. So, and I'm cool with that. But like, you know, I think being an only child, you know, it's a double-edged knife. It can definitely it can help you as much as it can hurt you. So I'm not mad at it. But.
Well, maybe in these social days, having that extra friend, you know, that blood wouldn't hurt, because maybe if you're an only child, maybe you start to rely too much on these social services to have, you know, friends and family in your mind.
Well,
so
I guess it boils back down to the parenting and how you know how much you let that into the kid's life and how you're able to monitor that.
It's about substance. Like, a lot of people, you know, are just not living in the real time anymore. They're looking at their phones all day. Even if they're in a club, they could be at Coachella and they're on their phone. Like, people aren't living in real time. So it's like, you got to just teach.
They're living for their phone or for the social platform. They're not living it anymore. That's the unfortunate part.
I'm definitely a hypocrite because it's hard, bro.
No,
we all are.
We all live like this. I had these conversations because my lady's 10 years younger than me. So when we started dating and she was using social media in a way that I wouldn't use it, you know, like kind of like diary style.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how could you even do that? Like, I'm just like, and then she's like, but who are you to talk? You're on this shit all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm looking at myself as an entertainer, as a marketer. You know, I'm using it as I'm doing certain things to get certain amount of followers because I need certain amount of eyeballs on what I'm promoting. Yeah. So I'm looking at it differently. Now, obviously, there's a hypocritical side to that, but and imagine that's her generation, and then the generation before her, and then the generation growing up now. Like, to them, it's all encompassing. I was watching some shit that in Bangladesh or one of these fucking countries, they introduced Facebook, and it's like their internet, and they live life by Facebook.
Yeah. No, it was on John? What's it called? This Week with John
Oliver, right?
John Oliver said
Seymour. Yeah, you saw that, right?
Not Seymour. John Oliver. Yeah, it was. How you say it starts with an M? It's like
Myanmar.
Yeah.
They had the problem with the Muslims, and they were hating all Muslims based off everything they were seeing on Facebook.
It's ridiculous. They basically said there was like 2 people that spoke the language that worked for Facebook in general. So like basically all this hate towards Muslims was being spread off of like false information, and it was starting this like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Holding your hands.
The 5 minute the 5 minute mark.
You got to definitely watch it. I suggest anyone out there watch the piece on
Yeah, it definitely underscores everything we're saying about social media.
So Static, what is it that, I mean, I think we kind of covered it, but fears wise, right? So like, what is your biggest fear as it pertains to her growing up and developing? Is it like technology or
other
things?
I'm not worried about her with technology. I'm just state of the world, really. I think about it all the time. Like, if things break, you know, things get crazy, I'll move to like Canada or Vermont or something. I'm thinking about getting my Canadian passport because I'm like, generation
You
removed.
ever tried that? You ever tried that?
You ever tried that?
Who is that? Who's that? Dude, who is that? Dude, who is that?
That's Harley. Can you say hi to Harley? Come here. Can you say hi to Harley?
Yes.
It's the kids' takeover.
Hello, Harley.
Hi.
Now it's childhoods.
You're Static. Be,
All right.
keep it a buck.
Let me
Do
see
you
this
bite
here.
her cheeks?
All right. I think the kids are telling us it's time to.
Dad.
If that my daughter got chunky cheeks, boy, I get in them. I can't.
But you're that.
My daughter, she's upstairs.
I talked to his daughter.
You want to talk? You want to talk to my daughter?
Yeah. I
All right.
Ow.
All right.
He did.
All right, her mom's calling me for dinner too.
Yeah.
So.
We gotta jump.
But look, I'm gonna take a picture and put it on. We'll put it on IG. But this is the old compilations that are all.
Oh yeah,
clean.
Rap Masters. I remember.
Oh
those.
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, I remember those.
They got the comedy ones, the gangster ones, and they're all clean versions.
Dope.
Hey, Static. We appreciate it, man. Thank you for rapping with us.
I appreciate you guys.
Take it easy, brother. Thank you, man. Have a good night.
All right, man.
Take care.
Later.
See you guys.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell.